Hello and welcome to another episode of It Was Mooney, your source for all things movie, streaming, and pop culture related. I'm your host Kosi, and I'm joined always by JuanyB, and we got a special two-man tonight. What's up, brother?
Turns out we're not only doing pop culture and movies and shit.
Yeah,
we are doing philosophy.
Yeah, you've been cooking this up. So Juan, a little bit of backstory. Juan kind of pitched this to me a couple months ago, and I was immediately like, yes, let's do it. But what the fuck is this? So I'm going to let you explain it. But
okay.
This is great.
So I basically coined the concept called numericism.
Yeah, he coined it. You can't steal it. Fuck
patent pending.
That's ours. That's Mooney's.
Patent pending.
Sorry, go on.
So numericism. So basically, when I talk about numericism, it's this belief we've kind of grown into in the modern age that numbers are basically the true way to objectively measure reality.
Numbers is life, Juan.
That numbers are basically the answer to many of life's problems.
They aren't the answer?
From AI that can, tell us how to code and draw pictures for us based on numerical algorithms, to fancy stats in baseball, basketball, football that tell us which are the best players. We just have, we've grown into this belief that numbers basically hold the answer to many of life's problems and that are the primary, if not only, way to arrive at objective truth in the world.
But Juan, aren't numbers used to help us, make sense of the world? To help make things make sense. Things that we can't obviously understand, but we use numbers to, make them make sense so we can better navigate the world.
That's very obviously true, Kosi. And I think it helps if I bring up certain examples of what I'm talking about instead of just saying abstract.
Yeah.
One thing that really, kind of got this was the impetus for getting this particular episode recorded today. Big item in the news. We won't go too much into the politics of it as opposed to our last episode. Yeah, but basically Donald Trump announced that he was taking over the DC police, that he was putting the National Guard and putting military folks basically into DC to deal with what he called just this massive crime wave that the DC was basically falling apart.
Apparently gangs of roving teenagers are just beating up people, old women, and looting. It's pretty bad. It's like
some guy that worked in the Trump administration.
Yeah, Big Balls. Yeah,
Big Balls. Big Balls. That's his literal nickname. I wish we were kidding. This is one of, I think, Elon Musk's lackeys.
Yeah, one of his lackeys.
It's one of his cronies. And again, they're little young dudes, which is perfect because 22 is the perfect age for somebody to think they're a lot smarter than they actually are.
Hence why he's called Big Balls.
I know you say that about teenagers, but teenagers are just rankly incompetent.
Oh, yeah.
Right, now 22-year-olds actually have some reason to believe they are pretty smart.
Yeah, a little bit of knowledge on them.
And they generally are pretty competent, pretty clever, right? They're good, they're very smart sheep. Right? They're extremely effective sheep.
Man. But yeah, someone beat up Big Balls.
Someone beat up Big Balls, and so basically Trump announced, hey, no, we're doing this takeover. The city is crime-ridden. It's a mess. All right, so the response, obviously, from a lot of more liberal folks has been basically along the lines of, hey, it's crazy that Trump is doing this. First of all, obviously, from an authoritarian perspective, all that. Yeah, we won't get too much into that today. And we don't agree with it and think it sucks.
It's terrible, guys.
Yeah, it seems kind of terrifying, frankly. Just military folks just randomly amongst the city. But one thing that struck me is that a lot of these journalists and liberal folks were like, hey, it's crazy that Trump is doing this because crime in D.C. is way lower than it was a couple years ago. It's been going down. It's actually like near 10, 20-year lows in D.C. It has less crime than ever.
It was a big thing that the Department of Justice put out saying, hey, DC crime in D.C. hits a 30-year low. Like, okay, so then what the fuck is this then? Yeah.
Right, so you hear that and you keep hearing that repeated, and well, the obvious conclusion is, well, I mean, DC crime is going great. We don't have nothing to worry about. Trump is just doing this because he's a crazy dictator. And, obviously there's some crime, things are going to happen. And we never said crime was zero. But, no, look, the numbers show crime is lower than it's been in years. I mean,
open and shut case. Yeah.
Open and shut. Well, then you turn around and actually look at the numbers, right? Yes, numbers and say the murder rate in DC is lower than it has been probably in the last few decades, at least like record lows since a good chunk of time. But that's relative to its own terrible murder rate.
Yeah, one of the highest in the nation. Yeah.
Right? One of the highest in the nation. So we actually looked at it. DC has a murder rate of what was it, like 25.97 people per 100,000?
Yeah, 27.3 per 100,000 people.
Right. Just as a comparison, and I'm sure some folks will try to say it's not a fair comparison, but it's a major metropolitan city in a large state, Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
The murder rate there is 5 people per 100,000. Right, so a little over 20 more people per 100,000, a little over 5 times as many people.
And we didn't even take into account that their relative populations. Somewhere like Salt Lake City has a population of 200,000 people, but DC has 700,000 people. So you can see but you can see how you can just ignore those stuff and use the tunnel vision numbers you see for your own gains. So it's very easy.
Because again, the liberal folks were trying to say basically, hey, Trump is overreaching and he's crazy. There's nothing to worry about here. There's no crime. Look, it's at 30-year lows, right? And that was their main case. But then again, you look at the actual scenario and sure, relative to itself is doing well, but relative to other cities in this country, it's still one of the worst cities. Right? Again, Salt Lake is probably a convenient example, but there's plenty of other cities that are below Washington, D.C.
And I want to make sure I got this right. You're not saying that we should do away with numbers. That's not what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying we should do away with it, and I'm not saying what Trump is doing with him is right either.
You just think that the numbers are being used nefariously.
One, yes. Obviously, folks have known around, not like a completely original idea, right? We've heard Mark Twain say there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics.
Oh, that's a good one, okay.
Right? I'm not the first person to suggest that we should be cautious around it. But part of the problem is that in today's day and age, we've gotten to the point where you have to have some kind of number to argue your point or to make any kind of appropriate argument, or you're just told that you're relying on anecdotal evidence or on emotions or feelings, and that basically what you're doing isn't valid. Take again back to the example of crime in DC. Okay, it might be lower than previous years, and it might be lower than it's been 30 years or whatever, but it's not distributed evenly. If you go to the nice tourist areas or the places where the congressmen live, it's nice. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't really live there, right? There's plenty of lawyers up there. There's plenty of lobbyists. You go to the National Mall. You go to the White House. You go to the Capitol. It's just nice. There's good restaurants. Nice, yeah. It's a hip place to live. Cool stuff.
Not perfect, but it's not crime-ridden.
Yeah, you go to certain other places.
In D.C.
Certain other parts of D.C., and, these are people who are struggling. Yeah. These are people who either they or someone they know has had their stuff broken into. They've had muggings. They might have had murders, right? Yeah. Crime is concentrated in these areas. So when you look at these people and you say, hey, don't worry, the average of the city, crime in the city is going down.
Well, the average isn't going to fix my broken window or my shot through fence. It's like...
Exactly.
What you doing?
Exactly. On a certain point, sure, I mean, the numbers can sometimes tell you if a case is an extreme outlier. Like if Big Balls was the only guy who had gotten beat up in D.C. in the past year or some shit, right? Like it was just an extreme, wild, unprecedented scenario, then sure, it'd be silly to overreact like this.
Right.
But it's not really what's happening. There's a very serious homeless problem in D.C. and a lot of other major metropolitan areas. Crime, again, as we mentioned, is pretty high. is pretty high relative to plenty of other places, again, even outside of the United States. It might not be as ridiculously crime-ridden and like gang controlled as Trump is painting it as, but there are parts of the city where you should not feel comfortable walking around with like nice clothes and a fancy watch and act like nothing is gonna happen to you at 2 a.m.
So, do you feel as though like this over-reliance on numbers kind of has people miss out on what the human element of things are? You kind of miss the people for the numbers.
Sometimes it's that you miss the human element. It is probably frustrating to hear somebody say, "Hey, again, don't worry. Your experience really isn't bad. You're over complaining because the average of the city is actually great."
Yeah, it can't be that bad. Look at
right?
the average.
We've seen that with economics before, where when the Biden was around, we'd say, "Oh, look, the stock market is up, GDP is better than ever.
What you complaining about?
The unemployment rate is low. So why are you complaining?" Right? Like the people who are saying the economy is crap, oh, those are just Republicans trying to shit on Biden. But no, we knew plenty of folks who were like, "Hey, this is not great. This feels just like crap. Everything's expensive. My paycheck isn't going up, but everything I'm buying is." I don't know, folks who are starting to lose their jobs, or maybe they have a job, but it's not a particularly great one.
The thing about the numbers is, they're correct, but it does ignore the weeds and the people in the middle of that. Where it's good for everybody. The numbers say so, but again, it's a sweeping generalization almost. It's like but you're not accounting for so many other different factors and scenarios and people that are involved in here. And so it's damaging. It's damaging.
And then another big part of what I'm trying to get at too is that, again, numbers are presented to us in this as a way, again, of like achieving this kind of scientific accuracy, this objective kind of viewing of reality.
Control.
Right. If you say, "Oh, hey, I feel like there's too much crime," then people are just going to be like, "Oh, well, that doesn't mean anything." It's like, no, but trust me, I've had more people, I've seen more crimes visibly happen. I've heard people telling me about crimes more than in the recent past. No, but those are just all anecdotes. That doesn't mean anything, right? But again, you present these numbers to folks, and you present them as like, "Oh, okay, if I show you the average of crime rates in the city, that means, boom, that's the objective, complete truth."
That's it.
And there's nothing else to look at, right?
When there's so much to look at, especially a city with all the moving parts that make up for that number of crime, it's easy to just look at that number.
That too, and I also want to say, like, okay, like somebody presents this number, and it's just this sheen of, like, oh, this isn't biased. This isn't somebody's opinion. This is just an objective, hard number.
So you think there's maybe some even manipulating and stuff going behind the scenes of just bringing us the actual numbers?
Right.
Thinking.
Even when it's not always intentional, there's always biases when it comes to this stuff.
Go into that some more. I'm curious about that.
Okay, so we look at hard sciences. We look at, for instance, chemistry, physics, things like that. They have certain inputs. You put a baking soda and vinegar in a volcano.
Gets a reaction.
In certain quantities, and it reacts. Mm-hmm. You can literally measure how much you're going to get by the masses you put in to a very, very close degree, right? You can look at physics. If you push somebody with a certain force, they'll keep moving to a certain... you can build entire internal combustion engines that can move planes through the air with these concepts that work every single time.
And they're quantifiable, and we can say, and they're measurable, and we can be like,
quantifiable, measurable, provable, discrete numbers that can be used, right?
Yes.
And because of that, you have this mentality of, okay, the hard, true science that gives us correct answers all has numbers, right? And it's all quantifiable. Mm-hmm. And so then we get to the soft sciences, the social sciences,
the woo-woo stuff,
right? Philosophy, economics, all these other ways of trying to understand the human condition that don't always necessarily lend themselves to being easily quantifiable. And it's, oh, hey, those are the lame social sciences that don't do things right. Because again, it's just stories and it's just people's opinions and feelings. No. We got to put numbers to these things, or it's not valid.
Yeah, if I can't measure it, it doesn't exist.
If I can't put a number to it, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
So we have stuff like, intelligence. Intelligence is a nebulous concept.
The IQ test or whatever.
Right, yeah. IQ test is a great example. Intelligence is a very nebulous concept. It can be defined in many different ways. Right, somebody can have music intelligence, they can have emotional intelligence, they can be good at math, they can be good at puzzles, different things. And then along comes a test like IQ that, purportedly measures that. It can give you this kind of clear-cut answer. Oh, here's how smart this person is.
Smart rating.
We can just have this person, people take this test, this convenient test, and boom, we get a scientific answer that tells us how smart somebody is. Right?
And you think that, no, there's so much more other elements to intelligence and what it is. It's not just can't be attributed to a number.
I do think that. Okay, but I also think that the person who made it presents it as if it's just something that came upon from the... Again, when you talk about physics, these numbers aren't something somebody made up. These formulas aren't something somebody just made up. They literally came from the universe. That sounds a little hokey and like mythy, but like literally you measure stuff and like the area of a circle happens to be pi r squared every time.
Yeah, we measured that.
Because that's just how it works out and measures out. Right? The flow of water through a tube, the way a car moves, the way birds fly through the air, all of that has equations we can calculate based on the actual reality that we can put a number to, right? We can say a bird is flying at this speed, it's flapping its wings at this amount of rate, it weighs this much, it's exerting this much force with each flap, it's using this much wind to stay in air using drafts in the wind. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
We can have a number to all of this that describes to an exact degree how that's going to function. We then try to apply that to something like intelligence, right? Or any one of these topics. Again, it doesn't come from the universe.
You think we can't measure intelligence the same way we measure gravity?
There isn't some specific number that just comes out of nature that like, if you solve this puzzle at this amount of time, boom, you have now 150 IQ, and then that's it. That tells you us everything you need. We don't need to know about your intelligence, right? That tells you nothing about like your number sense or your music sense, your spatial sense. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell us all that many things. And there is no way. How do you measure something like emotional intelligence? Do you take a survey and ask their friends, hey, how do you think this guy is as smart as emotionally on a 1 to 10 scale?
Yeah.
And say, they all say he's a 9, so boom, that's it, he's a 9.
Yeah, like you can't it's really hard to attribute quantifiable stuff like numbers to something that's kind of that's nebulous, like feelings or like love or like happiness.
There is no direct tie to it.
Yeah.
There is no direct measurable tie. Again, we talk about quantifiable, but it's not something you can measure. You can't measure love, for instance, like put it to a specific number. Like, what is a love scale?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
you've seen it on game shows, whatever.
What is a friendship scale? Like, you and I are really good friends. We're tight and stuff. What does that mean? We have a 600 love score. We have a 300 friendship score.
Yeah, we have a meter that kind of measures our friendship meter over the years.
Like what? It's just a made-up number. It's just an arbitrarily put-together number. So it has this sheen of impartiality, like, it's just this number that we came upon to measure intelligence or measure whatever else we want to say we're measuring. But it's not really something that came from nature. It's something that someone made up. And the person who made that number up, who invented how intelligence scaled to a specific single number, right? Just by coincidentally to a single number. The person who put that together, again, is going to have his own biases. He's going to have his own things that he considers to be important. Is going to have, if he considers, being able to solve math problems, like simple number sense problems fast, to be some incredible sign of intelligence, then obviously he's going to put that on the test a lot. If he considers word puzzles to be like a sign of cleverness, then he's going to put that in there. But there isn't some universally agreed on complete truth that says, okay, no, we all agree that these are the things that measure intelligence, and here are the weightings for how it translates into a specific discrete score. That doesn't really exist, right? There's not some universal truth to that. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Well, I definitely hear you, but something like an IQ test, right? Like we can both agree, like there's value in that, right? Like there's value in using the IQ test, having a number kind of telling you what your intelligence is. Like, don't you think there's at least some kind of value in that? Maybe not encompassing having that be like what your intelligence is, but don't you find that there's value in just using that as a tool to understand people's intelligence?
So, I think in some theoretical world, right? I think in some theoretical world where we did have this magical test that could be taken and gave us a proper intelligence score, then I guess, sure, that would seem again, what would you even define intelligence as?
That's a whole other topic too.
And like again, where would you even measure it? Like, do you measure it as an adult or as a kid? Are you looking at potential or?
So many factors, yeah.
See, part of the problem with this, okay, so you look at a test like IQ test, and maybe you think, okay, no, but obviously we want to try to measure people's intelligence. Or maybe at the worst you think, oh, but hey, it's fun, and like, yeah, maybe it's not perfect, but it's like something. Okay, but here's what happens. Here's the danger of doing that, and why I think this series is important. Kind of my big thesis here. And this is perfect, Kosi, because you're, as a black man from Africa, can have some relevant insight into this. Okay, so you take this idea that these people have come up with some objective, accurate, or reasonably accurate, right? Maybe you say, oh, it's not perfectly perfect, but it's like at least kind of on the right track. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and again, it's just this honest, scientific test that some smart, impartial people made. It's numbers, just like when we say a bicycle is going at 50 miles an hour, we now say that, we can now measure intelligence with this test, right? Like the same way we can put a speedometer and tell how fast a bike is going, we can use this test to see how powerful this guy's brain is. Uh-huh. Right? So we have that established, right?
Right.
Okay. And then, now it turns out you take the test. Well, turns out folks who have taken it and have had an education their whole lives in the Western system, right? And by the way, this IQ system was built by entirely Western white folks.
Oh yeah, like the hoity-toity British guys that put this upon people.
Yeah, or I'm not sure who it was, to be honest. But it was not built by like some random dude in Africa, right?
No.
Okay, so these guys put together their idea of what is important to measure in intelligence and how valuable it is, and they put their weightings together. Mm-hmm. And pick the questions and such, right? Okay, so say we take that and try to apply that to that same test that is designed to measure how smart school kids 8 to 10 years old are after they've already been several years and learned numbers and reading and all that. Mm-hmm. Let's apply that same test to some villagers in Africa. Still
that don't have access to the education.
Don't have access to this modern education. Yeah. Might not even have full access to running water. Right. Like, obviously there's cities and stuff but
these in particular, some people just don't have that luxury of having running water. Yeah.
Right. So we go, or again, it's just like you go to you pick folks from a slum in one of these cities where people don't care about education and barely even go to school and such. Or again, you pick places where math is not particularly focused on and celebrated, so to speak. Like these hard kind of puzzle solving skills aren't treated as particularly important because people just got to work and people got to like
they're not focused on those things.
Focus on like practical knowledge that will affect their day-to-day life, right? So now these African folks do terrible on these tests on average compared to the white folks, right? Well, now you have racists coming in,
scientists,
right? These folks coming in and being like, "Oh, look, it's not that we hate black people. Look, this objective, impartial, totally accurate IQ test
that you're not going to question at all because
you're not going to question because it has a number.
Yeah,
it's numerical, and scientists did it." And therefore, it's correct and objective and has no biases at all.
Because again, it's the comfort the number brings. The number takes away the work for you. The work is done. This number tells you all you need to know. You don't have to do any other work. It kind of stops there, so you can do whatever the hell you want with those numbers.
Exactly. That's an amazing way to phrase it, Cozy. So again, instead of having to evaluate for yourself how smart that person is or get to know them and see how they actually behave in the real world.
Work is done for you.
You just have them take this little test, this convenient test. Oh, and now you find out that black folks are getting worse tests? Well, we don't have to look into this. We don't have to examine potential biases of the test. We don't have to examine the potential limitations and how important this test really is.
And I even go far and say, even the ones that did score well, if you want certain information to get out, you just won't even use that. I think that's could even be like used to that extent. If the information you're getting back isn't validating what you think, you're gonna just throw it away and just use the information that does, in my opinion.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what IQ really measures is your ability to do well on the IQ test, point blank.
And then you use that, and then you
take
that
again,
and put that on other people. Yeah.
It's the idea, the concept of numericism. It's that it expands that number from just being, oh, this is how good you are at this particular test, which probably is a good way to measure how good you are at puzzles or number. Like, you probably want somebody with a high IQ, like as a rocket scientist.
It's a good indicator for what you can do. Yeah.
Right. No, it's a good indicator for some things that you can do.
Yes,
some very specific things.
Specify things you can do.
Look at like somebody like Beethoven is a genius, but might be a complete dumbass with numbers, right? His musical mind was genius level, but might literally not be able to add 2 + 2 without a calculator, right?
Or like someone like Elon Musk, who's very intelligent, but he's not emotionally intelligent. It's like there's there's levels to this stuff.
Exactly, and just this idea that you can break it all down to a single number that is objectively derived and therefore unquestionable is both false and, again, actively harmful in certain cases.
Yes, harmful.
Eugenicists basically used IQ tests to be like, oh, no, we don't have to listen to black folks. We don't have to listen to these people because they're stupid.
Yeah,
they're
objectively
stupid. It's not us being racist. It's just that, like, scientifically they're stupid.
See the numbers. Look, it's a catch-all. You can just stop and.
Hey, we just used the modern example of DC, the violence statistics in DC. How both sides are using the same numbers to paint extremely different realities, and how both are kind of missing the point. Frankly, crime is a serious problem in DC. That can't be swept away just because it's a little bit lower. The example I use: if you're failing in school with like 50s, right, you got to get a 70 to at least pass. If you improve your score to a 60, you're still failing.
Yeah, we can applaud.
I guess we can like give you a little bit of a thumbs up for bumping it up somewhat, but we need you to pass. We need you to live up to good standards, not just to be less crappy than you were before.
Because technically, yes, from a number standpoint, technically, yes, there was an improvement in what you did. You were at a 50 last year, but you're at a 60 now. But overall, if you're going to look at the numbers and really utilize numbers and not just use them for whatever gain, if you use it, it paints a much clearer picture where, no, man, you need to get a 70. A 60 isn't passing. You're definitely correct on that.
A big part of the problem here is the way we use shortcuts. right? Look, numbers, when we talk about averages or a median or other ways,
Yeah, this.
they are basically ways to summarize, very quickly and dirtily summarize big distributions of numbers. Right? A funny example I was telling Kosi earlier. Okay, if you look at the average human being, the average human being has one boob, one testicle, half a dick, half a uterus. Because you
It's
have
a weird
man,
chimera person.
you have man and woman.
Yeah.
The women have two boobs, men have zero.
Yeah, like you're accounting for everybody and what
Right?
they have. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, you might say, okay, that's a silly example for something that's an average, right? Okay, well, let's look at wealth
gap.
distribution.
Yeah, well, wage gap. Yeah.
Wage gap, wealth distribution, right? Okay, you might say, okay, we're living in America. Oh, look, America's wealthier than it's ever been. GDP is higher, the stock market's higher, unemployment numbers are low. Everything is fantastic.
Yep.
If you just look at the average of what everybody has and you include these massive, ridiculous outliers, it paints a rosy picture where everything in the U.S. is going great, where the numbers paint this picture of, oh, hey, on average, things are improving. On average, we have a lot of money. But
That makes a good headline too.
yeah, if you have Jeff Bezos with $200 billion and you have this guy with zero, the average between them is that now they have $100 billion in wealth.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything worthwhile, right? Or if you put it into 1,000 people, now they have an average of $1 million per person. But again, the other guys have zero.
Yeah.
The other guy, like those 1,000 people, 999 have zero.
They're still
and
broke.
Jeff Bezos has the 200 billion. You know what I mean?
It's a way to wave away people that ask hard hitting questions like, why does this stuff exist? But again, these numbers, because who wants to question numbers? They're a thing that it's a number. It's a way to kind of wave that away and
That's
stop
how
the conversation.
We're trained like, oh, hey, if you're shown this quick number, it's a way to shut down discussion.
Yeah.
Right? This is the correct answer. And again, even if I'm not saying, hey, stop looking at numbers, but you got to try to look at not just the single, easy, quick number, right? You got to often look at the distribution of the numbers. See, something like an average, when you take an average wealth, for instance, as we brought up, when you take an average wealth, the value of an average as a measure, like of the summary of a big distribution of numbers, depends on the numbers following a normal distribution. In other words, most people have close to the average, right? You've seen the famous bell curve.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The little hill, right? Basically, that means there's some people on the extremes, a few people are on the extremes. Most people are kind of evenly distributed towards the middle. So the average of the bell curve is that big middle in the middle of the graph.
But it only accounts for.
So that's just a normal hill.
Yeah.
With weight distribution, we got a super
Slopes.
steep, ridiculous
Yeah.
Mount Everest way out in the corner where all the billionaires are, and then a plateau for most other people. Well, I guess some folks have millionaires or make good salaries, doctors, lawyers and such, engineers. They still live pretty good lives. But we have a lot of folks just barely getting by, right? Just barely existing. And to tell those folks to be like, hey, no, you have nothing to worry about because the average wealth keeps going up.
It does nothing for them.
It does nothing for them. It actively ignores the problem.
And it makes them pissed off.
It allows you to dismiss. It allows you to dismiss them because you say, no, the average of everything is good.
It's easy to dismiss, and it allows you to just not do the work to fix that problem.
If you actually look at the graph, it becomes very obvious, right? If you look at the actual wealth distribution on a graph, which does not combine into a single number easily, right? It's not something you could put a median or an average to and get a clean, nice number. Well, you look at that graph, it suddenly becomes very obvious that things are very concentrated on one end, that things look very fucked up on the other end. So you can look at numbers on a deeper level, analyze them in various ways. The problem is most people aren't really equipped to do that.
And I think our relationship with numbers needs to not be so surface level. It needs to be deeper. We need to be able to use the whole gamut of it, because if not, you run into the problems we've been talking about this whole time. Like our relationship is not it's superficial.
Because
numbers.
again, guess what? If you just trust somebody to feed you the summary number, right? They're always going to feed you the summary number that's convenient for them, right? If the average is the number that best gets their point across, like if they're a rich person trying to convince poor people that things are okay, they're gonna look, oh look, the average wealth is fantastic.
Or yeah,
If you're like the more communist type, you might be like, oh no, the number we're gonna look at is the poorest person. The poorest person is doing so badly that we have to just take money from people until the poorest person does well, right? It's easy to manipulate basically when you just have a single number that you're looking at. When instead of trying to look at a comprehensive picture, you're looking at the shortcut numbers, it makes it very easy for someone to feed you the specific shortcut number that feeds into their narrative and not into what the real truth of it is.
there's always I keep hearing this thing like you heard the argument like black folks are 13% of the population but commit 15% of the crime, 52% of the crime.
Yeah.
It's something that they always parrot and try to shove in people's face to say, look, you see.
Frankly, I've heard that argument. I'm not even sure if that's a real statistic.
It's not even a real statistic, but it sounds good because the 13% is true.
You know, again,
it's skewing.
It's
that
a great
52.
example of the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Frankly, where
it's used for,
we're so used to looking for a specific number to tell us the truth of how the world works,
or why we think the way we
that
do.
we often don't even actually
Research it.
look at where the number comes from, what it means. We just take it for granted. Somebody plops a number in front of you, and there's just this kind of imprimatur of correctness and scientific accuracy that it gives to the argument, even when it's totally fake or when the number might as well be. There's plenty of examples. One of the famous ones, something like the Myers-Briggs
we were talking about
test,
that earlier, yeah.
where it's a silly personality test made by folks who weren't even like psycho.
I'm an EFTJ. I'm an FPT.
Yeah, you could go into it. Like, why was there 4 categories? Why did each category only have 2 letters that applied to it? Why would human beings fit neatly into 16 categories of personality?
I think it's a way that maybe it's messy, maybe it's not effective, but it's a way for people to kind of understand how and why they work. I definitely rely on it more or see the more use of it than let's say astrology or like a horoscope or whatever, where
it's frankly pretty much the same thing.
The same. I think there's a definite. I think there's more use with the Myers-Briggs than like.
Now, see again, you think there's more use because there's a number attached to it. Because it seems like there's something objective to it.
Well, also it seems as though you're asked more stuff, and that there's more information that's asked of you in order to come to that conclusion.
You don't. Let's say you were going to establish personality with a multiple choice test. How many multiple choices would you have per question? What's the correct number so that you correctly measure personality?
I guess there is none, really.
Can you come up with a number?
Yeah.
Is 4, 5, 10? Why? Why not 56? Right? Why not 56 gradients of possible answers for each personality question?
Because
there's 100 personality questions. Why not 1,000? Why not 333? Why not 610 or sometimes 630, depending on what your answers to previous ones?
Because you can only get a snapshot, really. All you can get is you can't get like a full encompassing of what it is, so you can just do the best you can. It's just get these small chunks.
That's an excuse. That's an excuse. And I don't know if there's some nefarious thing behind the Myers-Briggs, but I do know that the illusion it's giving you, that you're getting some kind of meaningful information that you should use to make decisions with your life, is just that, an illusion brought up by numericism. Your belief that because something has a number to it, there must be something true about it. That somebody must have put that number has to mean something objective. That number, that a 7 to that person is a 7 to you, right? That's the theory behind it, but it's a lie. That does not exist in the real world for this kind of stuff. There is no specific number that you can put to somebody's bravery, to somebody's cowardice, to somebody's loyalty. There is no measurable. Again, how? Try to come up with a scientific experiment that measures how loyal somebody is as a friend.
Yeah, they're like tests, but at the end of the day, it's not even
You
like...
can try to come
it's
up
not
with
even
some
like-
certain kind of proxies,
Yeah.
like, oh,
give
hey,
it a
does
number.
this guy betray his friend for a certain amount of money? But that doesn't mean anything in the real world,
Because
right?
something like loyalty is...
Like, if you're trying to determine how loyal somebody
not
is, are you really
tangible.
going to look at some weird test that has somebody in a room like, oh, they didn't take money when they had a chance to? Like, it's like weird things that we try to do to kind of approximate.
It's intangible. It's a concept. We can't really put a quantifiable thing to a concept like love or loyalty or bravery or stuff like that. But I'll always argue on the side of I understand why I understand the pursuit for that, because it kind of would freak someone out that we can't measure love, or I can't measure this.
That's where I'm less, I guess maybe I'm more cynical, where it sounds nice. Oh, hey, I'm pursuing this
for knowledge.
For knowledge and science and stuff. But no, more than often than not, the people who do this stuff have an agenda. Even if it's not a nefarious one, they have some agenda. They might have good intentions, but their biases color what they put the numbers as.
You're kind of almost alluding to, we'll get into the series, but yeah, I can see what you mean by how it can be gamed, it can be manipulated and whatnot.
So Cozy brought it up. We're basically going to do a couple of these episodes talking about various specific subject matters where this topic of numericism comes up a lot.
Yeah, because I straight up was asking you what about this, and you kind of were like, well, here are the examples.
So we could talk for hours. I want to bring up different specific examples. So example one is going to be kind of a Moneyball episode, basically going into the analytics into sports, the way it's affected not just the way we look at players, but the way the game is played.
Yeah, really fascinating actually how it changed and how we can see how they use numbers to actually just call plays essentially. Like, oh, this play is called because statistically blah 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 said so.
No, exactly. It's evaluated things like, for instance, people go for fourth down calls more often in football. People shoot more threes in basketball.
Hell of a lot more threes.
It's people change pitchers out more often in baseball. Different strategies that are brought up with the numbers. But then we also have things like, I like to call them NBA 2K ratings, fancy NBA 2K ratings. Just these all-in-one catch-all statistics that try to tell us, like, oh, hey, Jokic is the best player because he's a 40 per, and the next best guy has a 35, and then that's it. There's no more argument. You don't have to argue anything else about the MVP. The numbers say Jokic has 40 and this guy has 35.
There's quantifiable evidence to show it.
So that's it. There's the end of the argument. I win, you lose.
But no, there's more to that.
There's more to that.
There's always more to that.
There's more to that. So again, there's the good and the bad. So that's one thing we'll look at sports.
That's one episode. Okay.
The next episode will probably deal with the economics and kind of, again, we've already talked about it somewhat with the wealth distribution and stuff, but things like the way companies turn their employees into numbers, the way that being able to do that dehumanizes and separates us from the decisions
severance
we
up in
make.
here, a little bit.
Severance is a great example, actually, of the way this works.
Okay.
The belief in the fictional company had that they could quantify human emotions and literally fit them into little boxes.
Yeah, turn your emotions into ones and zeros and to manipulate you to do whatever they want.
Put fear, these numbers represent fear, and you put them into this little fear box, and somehow that captures the essence of a person. Again, that belief is not that far from transhumanism, from stuff folks like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and guys like that believe that AI will solve all the problems of the future, things like that. Again, it makes MBAs and other folks, performance reviewers, HR, try to reduce everyone and every action to some easily quantifiable number.
KPI, that's
right?
it.
A KPI, a performance review score. Oh, you scored a 4, so that means you're a great employee. Oh, the Uber driver has a 4.4 average, so that means he's a great employee, right? It's this quantification of people's works and lives and the economic sense. And then the last topic will deal mostly with tech, AI, the transition from big data we saw back in the early 2000s.
I heard you talking about that. What is that? What is big data?
Big data was just like this concept of these massive data sets that companies were starting to collect right around the time that Facebook and YouTube and all these places became active. Right, all the little data they collect and pass on, the different websites you travel, your posts, your comments,
all the stuff that I see on my phone scrolling.
The different the videos you watch, the amount of times you watch them for, just massive amounts of data dumped into servers. And the idea was that Watson and these other smart mathematicians and algorithms were going to parse all that for relations between the data and give us, these massive, meaningful insights into, like, I don't know if you remember, like, Watson trying to, like, cure cancer.
Yeah, he was trying to
We'll probably go into more
hospital.
detail with it in the actual hospital, but that was, like, a famous example.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Of, hey, Watson can beat people at Jeopardy and can beat people at chess, and therefore...
Could possibly change healthcare,
and
maybe.
therefore, it's going to be able to, just from numbers, without having to actually ever interact with the real world, be able to tell us when somebody has cancer, for instance, or be able to tell us what treatments we should use for their cancer, just based on correlations between massive sets of data. And it didn't work very well.
Yeah, you'll definitely get into that too.
And now it's ChatGPT in that modern age, which works a lot better. I'll give him credit, but still runs into so many of the same issues. So we'll kind of go into more detail with some of the problems with that.
No, I'm excited for this series, man. Just teeing it up. I love how like we were able to get us into this intro, try to ease us in one. I could hear you trying to. Even me, I was trying to get into the other topics, but no, I love this intro episode you gave us. This is awesome, man. I love the groundwork we're laying with this series.
Appreciate that, Cozy. But more than anything, I guess the topic statement, the thesis of all this is, look, it's not that numbers are bad. In fact, numbers are very important and necessary for the world to function.
Yeah,
right.
You're not some crazy guy trying to get rid of numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's important in all facets of life. And where numbers can be used, they generally should and can be used. But be careful with the numbers. The appearance of objectivity they lend to somebody who uses them is often fake. People will use numbers and manipulate true numbers, actual facts, to make you believe in stuff that's totally false, right?
Right.
Again, we can go back to the crime example here in D.C., where people are using the same exact numbers to basically miss the entire point and talk past each other by being able to look at the exact same statistics, right? Yeah. So, and above all, that I hope anyone listening to this lets go of the belief, is this need for understanding, for control in a chaotic world, right? We want to know how smart people are. We want to have convenient answers. I mean, if there was a loyalty score, I guarantee you everybody would be looking at that shit all the time when determining who their friends were and all this stuff, right? Like, if there was a proper, accurate, magical score that could...
Of course, because there's comfort in that. It'll be easy for us to know that.
Right, yeah. It's nice. It's nice in an uncertain, chaotic world where we don't know what happens next to know, hey, I can trust Cozy forever. He's not going to backstab me if I get big, or if we make money, or if he meets a girl, because he has a high loyalty score. So that that's it. He can't. He has a high loyalty score, so that I don't have to think about it anymore.
All the work is done for me.
Right. That's the mentality I want to get people away from. Not blow off numbers, but if you can't and aren't willing to meaningfully and deeply engage with them and accept that often the same numbers, even actual facts, are the best ways people can lie to you, right? Hey, it was a fact that black villagers in Africa were getting lower IQ scores, right? Doesn't mean black people were inferior or less intelligent, but somebody will obviously...
want to be evil and game the system and use the numbers for your own gain,
hey,
you can use that.
That's what the numbers said.
Yeah.
It's what the numbers said, Cozy. Do you not believe in numbers? Yeah. Do you not believe in science?
But I also implore people that would listen to that and just take it as gospel to have a deeper relationship with numbers and maybe, look into it and see, instead of just taking it as face value.
Try to understand why behind the number, instead of just taking, oh, hey, there's this average, there's this GDP, there's this IQ, there's this personality score, There's this NBA 2K score, right? And that tells you all you need to know, and there's no more need to argue and analyze and look deeper into it, right? That is not how the real world works. There is not a nice, convenient number that tells you, somebody's personality, that tells you how much you love somebody. There's not a nice, convenient number that can predict the future of a sporting outcome. There's not an algorithm that magically tells you how much a person is worth in the workplace, right? These are fake notions that we have been brought into our lives. Again, I won't say it's fully nefarious. Often it was for the best purposes. Often it was to try to gain some measure of control, gain some measure of objectivity, move past some conscious and unconscious biases people have, but often they fail to do so. So be careful with them. Hopefully you find this interesting and come back and listen to the rest of our series. On the topic will be roughly around this length for each episode.
Yeah,
and,
we could definitely go a little bit longer, but
no, I appreciate you bearing with me, Kosi.
No, I appreciate you for doing this. I love this. I love the content when you first told it to me. I was like, hell yeah, let's.
Yeah, we coined it Numericism. I even Googled it to make sure it wasn't out there somewhere.
No, that's definitely Mooney.
It's kind of like mysticism, right? Yeah. It's I know I'm making it sound almost cult-like, and it's not fully cult-like, but it's still. It's still basically it's a faith in numbers, and you're not supposed to have faith in numbers, right? You're supposed to use numbers to objectively actually prove things.
They're a tool to help you navigate the world, but not like
it's an actual tool. When you get to the point where you feel the need to have a number to everything, where you feel like you can't evaluate reality without being able to put some number to it, that's when you've lost it.
Well said, my friend. Hey, man, I want to thank you, Juan. I want to thank you for coming in and just hitting us with some knowledge. I want to thank you, listeners. And listeners, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. If you like our stuff, you can search for us on social media everywhere under It Was Mooney. And you can listen to our other episodes. Definitely catch our last episode about South Park. It was a great time. Juan went off as he did on this one. But once again, I'm Kosi, and I'm joined always by JuanyB. And until next time, guys, we're going to get, theoretical with this and philosophical with this. Peace.